Welcome back to Fast Politics. You're a friend of mine, John Della Volpe.
Great to be with you. Great to see you, Molly. How are you?
I am just delighted to be in video at this moment in American life. You've been writing such interesting stuff. You're a pollster, but you're also a thinker and a pundit, and but you focus on the youngs. And you saw this coming. You saw the 2024 cycle. I just to relitigate the
Are you
past.
trying to trigger me right now, Molly? Is that what you're trying to do here?
But we were on a panel together. I can't stop talking about this because it was one of those horrible moments in 2024 where I saw my entire life flash in front of me. The Youngs, Biden lost them, Harris did not capture them, and Donald Trump picked them up. So explain to us where we are now and sort of how we got here.
There's one other piece of that story. Biden won them by nearly historic measures and then lost them. Okay. Trump
Good.
engaged.
A bright spot, even worse.
Okay. Well, because just 4 or 5 years ago, okay, in 2020, Molly, we had the largest youth turnout in American history. One. Okay. And Joe Biden did what no other president and no other Democrat candidate this century did other than Obama once. He received 60% of the youth vote. Okay.
Right.
Obama got 66% in 08, 60% in 12, and Biden matched that, but with more people turning out. Okay.
Right.
And then what you said was accurate. He quote lost them. And the reason he lost them is because that my view is that younger people, in many ways, communication wise, were taken for granted. Okay. Policy wise, legislatively wise, leadership wise, no, right?
Right.
That's the thing that's
But
frustrating. Right?
I mean, what's incredible is during the time he lost them, he canceled student debt.
Well, not only did he cancel student debt, but very few people know. So that therefore there are millions of people, right, whose lives are changed for the just change, right, dramatically, not
Right.
just for the better. Like the people that I run into in my research, right, they bring tears to the eyes, right, for the first time ever being able to like buy a home, fix your car, care
Right.
for a child in terms of childcare, and some of these other things. Now those policies didn't necessarily affect young voters like in real time because
Right.
folks, the people in their 30s. But the point is, he delivered. Biden administration relieved roughly as much student debt as support for Ukraine. Over $150 billion relieved in student debt. That changed millions and millions of lives across the country. The fact is that very few people, unless those who were personally touched by it, realize that. So that's kind of part of it. And you're right. When we look back at the last campaign, Kamala Harris, she lost, about 12 points with younger men. Okay.
Right.
Trump won younger men overall. And she actually didn't hold the margin that Biden won with women, younger women. Okay.
Right.
So all of it, kind of moved back and, who knows once all the kind of the data is calculated, she probably won the youth vote by a handful, single digit points, maybe 8, 9 points or so. Some people dispute that. We'll see. But the fact is a Democrat doesn't win the White House without rolling up big margins in the youth vote. Democrats don't win back the House or competitive unless they run significant margins with young people. And right now, they're just completely lost.
Bernie Sanders, AOC, touring the country, huge crowds. Democrats, 2016, had an opportunity. Maybe it wasn't as clear. Now we're seeing huge crowds across the country, right? Huge. We're seeing protest crowds. We're seeing crowds. So here's a question for you. How do Democrats catch this lightning in a bottle, right? Because, you go on, for example, you go on YouTube and you see Alyssa Slotkins, and I love Alyssa Slotkin. She's great. I've interviewed her a ton of times. You see her response to the State of the Union. It has 5,000 views on YouTube from the Democrats, okay? 5,000 views, right? You go on AOC's Instagram, it has millions of followers. So the question is, Jerry Connolly, Democrats made Jerry Connolly the ranking member of oversight. Nobody knows who the fuck Jerry Connolly is, right?
Right.
They decided not to make AOC the ranking member of oversight because it was not her turn. whatever that means, it seems to me that old white guys may not be the answer to Democrats' youth problem.
Well, a couple things. One is that, as you said, I think Bernie Sanders said he spoke to the largest crowd he's ever spoken to, including when he ran for president multiple
Yeah.
times, over the last week on this tour, right? So
Right.
clearly we can see a backlash to Trump. Okay,
Yeah.
we can actually even see it with younger men. Molly, what I'm doing now on my Substack, which I put up there for free, is I'm doing monthly polling and tracking, and we can
Right.
see even among young men that Donald Trump's favorability is down almost 10 points since January. And when I look at his approval numbers on all those economic measures, he's down by double digits with younger men. Okay. So we're already seeing a backlash because listen, the reason I think that the youth vote, and we discussed this on our panel, by the way,
Sneakers.
everyone agrees,
Sneakers.
right? Is
Yeah.
that it was a vote based upon people's experiences, okay, and not based upon ideology, okay?
Right.
That there are millions of younger people who disagreed with Donald Trump's policies and ideas and thoughts around climate, around reproductive health, around healthcare, et cetera, but they thought that he was going to be best to deal with their own economic precarity, right? Millions of
Right.
people are living at home or with friends because they just can't afford to get that stability in their lives to have a place, right? So I think we just need to recognize kind of that, and that's clearly something that Bernie Sanders and AOC, I think, have been talking about for many years, right? But it has to go beyond, and this is a challenge, right? It has to go beyond policy, has to go beyond ideology, Molly, and to truly like re-engage in significant ways with the youth vote. You need to actually show the difference that these policies make for real people. And that's been the challenge that Democrats have had.
So let's talk this through for a minute because I think it's important just for the nerds who are me to remember this is not a policy problem, right? The policy is good. The policy is popular. The policy is populist. This is a messaging problem.
Yeah, and you need to start with the realization of these three things. Okay, the first thing is that this generation of younger people, okay, we're 5 years post COVID, and they feel betrayed by the systems.
Right.
Right, they feel completely betrayed by institutions and systems. I'm going to post some charts soon where you can clearly see this drop off, significant drop off in trust in nearly every institution post
And
2020,
that's
post
COVID
COVID.
lockdowns. That's
Absolutely.
because of
Yeah.
COVID
COVID
lockdowns.
lockdowns and I think that the ability from the right, to kind of tap into the conspiracy theories of all those sorts of things. Two of those
Right.
things, I think the kind of the culture wars kind of accelerated, right? The COVID
Right.
lockdowns. That's one, right? The second thing is that, younger people, as you can see, as you noted from the Sanders and AOC crowds, right? They're not disengaged, but they're waiting for the rest of us to catch up. Okay. And
Hmm.
clearly kind of AOC and Bernie within that cohort are kind of on the leading edge too. And the third thing is the missing link here is just listening. Okay. And respecting and hearing them. Okay. And getting out there and too much, I've been very critical that too much of strategy in the last campaign was based upon analytics. Okay.
Right.
Modeling zeros and ones,
And
ones,
and
twos, and threes, right?
and I think
You
it
can't model, sorry, you can't model
yeah.
something that hasn't happened before. A 17-year-old never voted before. You can't model that, right? They have a very different experience than a 27-year-old. Sorry.
No, but you're a data guy. So you have a pollster saying that modeling is leading Democrats astray. I want to say that again, right? You are a data guy saying that modeling is not working for Democrats. And like you and I both understand what a big deal this is. I think like a layman might not understand. Basically, I want you to do another minute on explaining how this modeling works and why it has just fucked Democrats in every election
Yeah.
since Obama.
And obviously there are models that we use in survey research and data. Okay. So I'm not saying
Right.
all analytics, all modeling. Okay. But what I'm talking about is calling someone on the phone or showing someone, an internet poll or text to web poll or something and saying, what do you prefer, this or that? Okay.
Right.
Which of these five messages, is kind of most convincing? And then building and extrapolating that people will vote based upon those kinds of issues. Okay.
Right.
As compared to taking a step back and actually asking people how they live their lives. What keeps them up at night? What makes them excited? What do they look forward to? What role does government and our institutions play? Do they help or do they hurt? Unless you spend time listening, respecting people, I cannot, someone who's been doing this for, for just youth for 25 years, I cannot even consider writing good survey questions, right? Unless I actually ask what people care about and think about, right? So we need to, rely less on the analytics and the projections because clearly look at where it's gotten Democrats, and more
Right.
kind of on the listening, the engaging, the respecting. Molly, if one out of 100 people, 1 out of 100 people flip their vote in the blue wall, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, 1 out of 100, Kamala Harris is president today.
Yeah.
Okay. So listen, we had a debate, right? We had a debate, not you and I, but there was a debate when we are at an event at the IOP about what the closing message to younger women would be. And if you recall, I said that younger women that I've been talking to who were late deciders, okay, were educated enough, were sophisticated enough without a college education to know that Kamala Harris would not immediately change the reproductive health status of folks in certain states. She didn't have the ability to do that. So therefore, what they were asking for is to give her a sense that they were listening to their economic concerns and give them a pathway to feel like they had some sort of stability in housing and other things. That's what I got from kind of listening. The data might have, you can write a poll to show whatever you want, but by truly listening, I think if the campaign understood that, focused more specifically on even on young women on those kinds of messages, we'd be in a different place. 1 out of 100 people you flip, it's a different situation right now.
I want to go back to this idea of offering young people something. So sneakers and right, he offered stupid stuff, but the point is he offered. And I do think voters responded to seeing him on podcasts. I mean, if you're a low information voter, you turn on Joe Rogan, you see the guy, he's saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to no tax on tips, maybe makes a few offers. You say, all right, that sounds pretty good. Versus the other candidate who you don't see at all.
And don't forget, it's not just Trump, okay? That he has an infrastructure,
Right.
okay? Charlie Kirk was the first guest on Gavin Newsom's podcast.
Let's talk about that for a second. If you're Gavin Newsom, don't you want to be on Charlie Kirk's podcast? Do you want to platform Charlie Kirk? I mean, make this make sense to me.
Okay, listen, I've learned a lot, from that.
Did you
Charlie
learn
Kirk
about
podcast.
bot farms? I mean, what did you learn?
I learned that what happens when you take young people seriously and you invest, right? He isn't
Right.
winning with the facts. Okay.
Right.
Charlie Kirk is not winning with the facts, Molly.
No,
Right.
no.
He's winning by making the effort and giving people a place to belong to. Okay. And that's what we need to learn. I think that's what Democrats need to learn. Okay. What Charlie Kirk's goal was, okay, was in 10 years, can he move the youth vote 10 points?
Right.
Okay. He did that in 4 years.
Yeah.
He did that in 4 years. So
But Democrats left that youth vote on the table.
yeah, and Kirk said, like in his opening remarks, he said, listen, we were watching the Democrats. We did this with your help. Okay. He says,
Yeah.
we looked at the Democrats at this generation
Yeah.
that they took for granted, that they've got significant mental health concerns. They get significant concerns about their economic future, education, etc. And we offer them kind of a pathway. Again, not with facts and not with the help of, as you said, bot farms and other things, but the fact is that they focused on it, and I think they caught a lot of Democrats kind of sleeping.
Yeah. And you and I were on this panel with young people who were in college, Harvard students, so not the norm, but still young people. And they all said they thought there was no way Harris was going to win. Like they absolutely saw this 100 miles away. They just thought because they were talking to other young people and in order to offset the very sort of the people who will vote Republican forever and ever, no matter what, you have to win the vote, the youth vote by a large margin.
The concern I have for Democrats is just a handful of years ago, I would say that every day that for every 1,000 young people turn 18, Molly, like 700 of them, 600 or 700 of them have values aligned with the Democratic Party. it was like this incredible opportunity for the Democrats to kind of cement kind of their values with an emerging generation. They didn't communicate that very well. And now we're living, in what I think is the beginning of a post-ideological era with younger people, okay, where because of the concerns about economics, they're voting in what they would say is a much more pragmatic way than they did, in maybe 16 or in 18. Or even in 20. So that's a concern if younger people agree with Democrats on most issues, but they're not voting in the numbers that they voted with Democrats in the past. That's a huge concern
But
because my generation is just getting more conservative, right?
right,
Yeah.
right,
Right.
right, right. So everybody's getting more conservative. I mean, the question though is if you're worried about the economy, if you're stressed about making it work, if you're doing these votes because you want people who are going to take care of Social Security and your taxes and the deficit. I mean, that's not Republicans, right? I mean, don't you think they're going to see some? I mean, I don't know how much you can propaganda your way out of this if you're Trump.
Again, we're seeing the backlash because people are very clear, right, why they voted for Trump. It was very, very clear, right? It's the egg prices, it's the gas prices,
Right.
it's the no tax on tips, it's the no tax on overtime. Those are very, very kind of clear kind of reasons why, right? And again, that's where we're seeing a little bit of that backlash in the midterms in 2018. Okay, that backlash was enough to carry Democrats to a historic victory. Okay,
Right.
but I'm less convinced of that now because the trust has been, um, just the lack of trust with Democrats to counter this, and to be authentic and to offer up specific examples of how they're making American lives better has been a challenge.
So, do you think that this is the moment for a Democratic Tea Party? Because all the reporting we're seeing is that the base is furious and the leadership is not meeting the moment.
Well, listen, I think that that's when we see these movements, right? We saw the Tea Party on the other side, last, whatever it is, 10, 15 years ago. We saw the rise of young people after Parkland. Like these are the moments. And what makes these moments special is when the grassroots is met with like the top down support as well, right?
Right.
That
What's
there
what makes them stick, right?
That's
The
what makes
problem
them stick.
is that the Democratic leadership is so ossified. I'm not convinced that these 80-year-olds are going to understand the value. I mean, remember, in 2016, they had the opportunity, they had a monster candidate called Bernie Sanders, and we were told it was her turn. And now here we are, right? I mean, like, if you look at the party in one way, you could see that at a lot of times they gave sort of the base a more corporate friendly candidate, and that candidate was not able to meet the moment.
Well, in 2020, I mean, that was one of the significant reasons why Biden won, right? Is that because of COVID, but Bernie Sanders learned perhaps a lesson from 2016 for whatever reason, right? And was quickly aligned with Biden, as
Right.
was AOC, as was the entire party, and that's what
Yeah.
it took to win an otherwise very, very close election, right? So you're right; they could certainly be having kind of second thoughts in terms of kind of where that kind of got them longer term. Because of all of those accomplishments that younger people and all people kind of, a lot of Democrats voted for. So it's clearly all being kind of rolled back in a significant way.
John, I hope you'll come back.
Of course, we have a big survey coming out in April with Harvard. It's our
Yes.
50th. So
Yes.
hopefully then.
Yes. 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 Yes.
All right.
You are the best. Appreciate you.
Always. Thanks, Molly.
Thank you.